In this lesson, we're going to continue to talk about proportions. A couple lessons ago, we talked about solving proportions with one-step equations, and we used the fish method. And then I went ahead and extended it to the ratio tables in the last lesson. And now we're going to take it one step further, and I'm going to give you a word problem. And from that, you're going to have to solve a proportion. So your goal is I can write and solve a proportion from a word problem. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the first example. Remember that you can rewind, fast forward, or pause the video anytime that you need to. Okay, so our first example, Yolanda drove 50 miles in 2 hours at a constant speed. How long will it take her to drive 150 miles at the same speed? Now, what we need to do is set up our proportion. You'll notice that for the first couple of problems, I've helped you out with a little bit of a formula here, and then I'm going to slowly take it away. So our first ratio up here is 50 miles over 2 hours. So 50 over 2 equals, and then our second ratio is we have our miles, which go on top, but we are missing our time. So that's going to be our variable, our x. So remember that you can solve proportions two different ways. I like to cross multiply. So 2 times 150 is 300. X times 50 is going to be 50x. And I need just a little bit of space over here. So I'm going to move this down just a bit. Okay. So I have 50x equals 300. Remember, I box my variable, and then I'm going to divide by 50 because that's what's attached to the variable. Whatever I do to the left, I do to the right. So these two 50s cancel out, and I have x equals 6. So my missing value here is going to be 6. But now let's put this all together. What does that actually mean? Well, it means that Yolanda can drive 150 miles in how many hours? That's what we were trying to find, 6 hours. Now the second statement there is how many miles can she drive per 1 hour? There's two different ways that you can figure this out. So you'll have to find the unit rate, but you can use the first proportion to find the unit rate, or you can use the second one to find the unit rate. I'm going to just use the second one since we already have the information over here. So in your calculator, you're going to do 150 divided by 6, and that's going to give you 25 miles per 1 hour. Let's look at another example. The Millers drove 105 miles on 4 gallons of gas. How far can they drive on 6 gallons of gas? Again, we're going to go ahead and set up a proportion, and I've helped you out with the formula. So we have 105 miles over 4 gallons, and then we have 6 gallons, which are on the bottom, and the x, the missing value, is on the top. So we need to go ahead and solve our proportion. 4 times x is 4x, and 105 times 6 is going to be 630. And again, I need just a little bit more space, so I'm going to move this down. Okay, so I'm going to set them equal to each other. 630 equals 4x. First thing that I do is I need to box my variable. Then I'm going to divide by the number that's attached to it, which is 4. These two 4's cancel each other out, and I'm left with x equals. Then I have 630 divided by 4. You put it in your calculator, and you're going to get 157.5. And that's your missing value up here. So the Millers can drive 157.5 miles on 6 gallons of gas. Now again, the second statement is going to ask us for the unit rate. How many miles can they go in 1 gallon of gas? You can use this to find the unit rate, or you can use this to find the unit rate. And remember, the unit rate is basic division. I'm going to use the information that we just gathered on the bottom since it's right there. So 157.5 divided by 6, and that's going to give us 26.25 miles per 1 gallon of gas. Okay, let's take a look at another example. There are 810 calories in 3 scoops of vanilla ice cream. How many calories are in 7 scoops of vanilla ice cream? I'm going to set up my proportion, and I've given you some help over here. So we have calories on top, scoops on the bottom. 810 calories over 3 scoops of ice cream equals 7 scoops, that's on the bottom. So that means my X, my missing value, is going to be on the top. And I'm going to give myself some room here again. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. 3 times X is 3X. Then I have 810 times 7, and that's going to be 5,670. And I'm going to set them equal to each other. 5,670 equals 3x. I know that my first step is to box the variable, and then I'm going to divide by 3. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. These guys cancel out, and I'm left with x equals, and with my calculator, I'm going to do 5,670 divided by 3, which is going to give me 1,890. That is the missing value to over here, which means that in 7 scoops of ice cream, there are 1,890 calories. And I'm going to fill in my 2 statements here. So there are 1,890 calories in 7 scoops of ice cream. Now I need to find the unit rate. Each scoop has how many calories? Well, take the information you just found and get the unit rate. 1,890 divided by 7. That means each 1 scoop has 270 calories. Let's take a look at another example. You're going to notice that I'm pulling away the help a little bit at a time. I have not set up the proportion for you here. So Sabrina jogged 2 miles in 0.5 hours. How far can she jog in 1.5 hours? So I'm going to go ahead and begin to set up the proportion. I'm going to put 2 miles over 0.5 hours. Then I have 1.5 hours that goes on the bottom. My missing value goes on the top. I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. 0.5 times x is 0.5x. 2 times 1.5 is going to be 3. And I'm going to come over here and set them equal to each other. 3 equals 0.5x. I know that the first thing I need to do is box my variable, divide by 0.5, divide by 0.5 on the other side. These guys cancel out, and I'm left with x equals 3 divided by 0.5 is going to be 6. What that means is Sabrina can jog 6 miles in 1.5 hours. Now, how far can she jog per 1 hour? Find the unit rate using this information. 6 divided by 1.5. That means she can jog 4 miles per 1 hour. Okay? All right, let's look at another example. 1 pair of boots costs $35. At this rate, how much will 9 pairs cost? Now, with this proportion, we have something a little bit different. We have money, we have currency, we have a dollar sign, and we know the rule for that is that it always goes on top of the proportion. So this $35 must go on top. On the bottom is the 1 pair of boots. On the other side of the proportion, I do not have any money, but I have 9 pairs of boots, and I have my x. So I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. 1 times x will equal 1x, and then 9 times 35 will equal 315. I'm going to come over here and set them equal to each other. 315 equals 1x. I'm going to box my variable, divide by 1, do it to the other side because it's only fair. Those guys cancel out, and x equals 315 divided by 1 is 315. So my answer is it will cost $315 for 9 pairs of boots. Each boot will cost how many dollars? Well, I could sit here and find the unit rate, 315 divided by 9, but if I look back in the original problem, didn't it already tell me how much it is for 1 pair of boots? It did in the very first sentence. I know that they cost $35. Okay, now we have another problem here. Set up a proportion to find the missing value in the table. So we have a type of ratio table here, but we have some information that makes it a bit of a word problem. Okay, so we have hours worked and dollars earned. We know that in a proportion, dollars always go on top. So $36 are earned for how many hours worked? For 4 hours worked. Then, do we have any other dollar amounts? Nope. That's our x. For how much worked? 10 hours. Go ahead and cross multiply. 4 times x is 4x. 10 times 36 is 360. Set them equal to each other. 360 equals 4x. Box your variable. Divide by what it's attached to, which is the 4. The 4 and the 4 cancel out. You're left with x equals, and 360 divided by 4 is going to be 90. So our missing value over here is $90. After working for blank hours, you've earned blank dollars. This is going to be after working for 10 hours. You have earned $90. Now you need to find the unit rate. You can use the first proportion or you can use the second proportion. Just to switch things up, I'm going to use the first proportion. 36 divided by 4. That's going to equal 9, which means each 1 hour you have earned $9. All right, let's take a look at another example. Set up a proportion to find the missing value in the table. You'll notice that our table, the titles are on the side this time instead of at the top. That makes a difference in how you read the table. If I go back to the last example, my proportions were formed by going side to side. When the table is set up like this, my proportions are formed by going up and down. So you have to be alert and understand how to read the table properly in order to set up the proportion right. So we have numbers of pi over cups of sugar. So we have 5 pies over 12 cups of sugar. We have our missing value over here, so our x, over 36 cups of sugar. So what we're trying to figure out is if I have 36 cups of sugar, how many pies can I make? So I'm going to cross multiply. 12 times x is 12x, and 36 times 5 is 180. So I set them equal to each other. 180 equals 12x. I box my variable. I divide by 12. Do the same thing to the other side. These guys cancel each other out, and I'm left with x equals, and 180 divided by 12 is going to give me 15. So for 15 pies, you need 36 cups of sugar. Now it wants me to find the unit rate, so I can either use the first ratio or I can use the second ratio. I'm going to go back and use the first one. So you put into your calculator 5 divided by 12. What you're going to find is that you're going to get a decimal that looks a little bit like this. And it's going to go on and on forever. Remember that when you get a decimal, I need you to round to the hundredths place. So that's going to be the second number after the decimal point. So if I put my stick here, my 6 is going to tell me what to do to the 1, and it's going to tell me to move it up. So my answer is 0.42 cups of sugar. Okay? All right. Let's try the next one. Set up a proportion to find the missing value in the table. You're going to see I've switched our table around again. The titles are at the top, so our proportions are going to go side to side, just like this. So we have miles traveled, 120, and it takes 3 hours. Then I have no value for miles traveled, and I have 5 hours on the bottom. So this is my x. I'm going to cross multiply. 3 times x is going to be 3x. 5 times 120 is going to be an even 600. Set them equal to each other. 600 equals 3x. Box my variable. Divide by 3. Do it to both sides to be fair. These guys cancel out. X equals 600 divided by 3 is going to be 200. So you can travel 200 miles in 5 hours. Now go back and find your unit rate. I'm going to use this proportion here. So I have 200 divided by 5, and that's going to be 40 miles per hour. All right, we have another example here, this time with cookies. You'll notice that I have switched the order of our chart again, or of our table again. I've put the titles on the side. So this time our proportions are going to go up and down. And it's very important that you recognize that before you start to set up the proportion. So you can almost draw like a little fraction bar here so that it helps you visualize it. So I have 28 cookies served over X students. I have 38 cookies served over 19 students. So I'm going to cross multiply. X times 38 is 38x. 28 times 19 is going to be 532. Set them equal to each other. Okay, we're going to go ahead and box the variable, divide by 38, do it to the other side to be fair. These guys cancel, and you're left with x equals 532 divided by 38 is going to be 14. So for 14 students, 28 cookies were served. Okay, so now let's find the unit rate for that. So I have 14, so we need to go back and see, are we going to use this ratio or are we going to use this ratio? I think I'm going to go back and use the second one here. So I have 38 divided by 19. That means each student received 2 cookies. Okay. All right, to finish us off, we have a quick challenge problem. If you can remember back a couple lessons, we talked about the 3 different ways to write ratios. So remember that proportions are simply 2 ratios that are equal to each other. So how do you rewrite this into a proportion? You try it, and I will write at the same time. Only look up when you're ready to check your answer. All right, the answer is posted. Don't look up if you're not ready though. So what I did is I made them into proportion. 3:3 can also be written as 3/3 equals 15 over x, and then you solve like a typical proportion, and you're going to end up with x equals 15. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of this lesson. If you have any questions, you can rewind, fast forward, go back and pause, or you can always ask me questions in class.